Hi everyone. So over the past few years I've been driving back and forth between Belgium and Poland quite often, which gave me the opportunity to listen to a lot of Polish radio and discover many artists and all of their great music. Now in the next video I'll be sharing my top 10 favorite Polish songs that I think are quite accessible to non-Polish listeners. Now these are songs I've been listening to since my first visit in 2017. And all of them are still played quite regularly on Polish radio. Now, I've set a simple rule. I'll just be selecting one song per artist. Of course, there's a lot of great Polish music out there, and for sure I missed plenty of gems. But these tunes really made a lasting impression on me. Now, if you're interested to find out which songs I selected, then let's get into the top 10 together. Here we go. Alright, starting off the list we've got Zanim, pójdę by the band Happysad. And this is a bit of a special song to me because it was the first Polish track my girlfriend, who still lived in Bielsko-Biała at the time, recommended to me. And a few years later now, it's still stuck with me. Now the track came out all the way back in 2004, which you can clearly tell by the quite shitty low quality video clip, but since then it has become a classic in the Polish indie rock scene. It's a laid back, melodic song with clean guitars and a really easy to sing along chorus. And I feel like they might have been inspired by ska or reggae for this one. When I first tried playing along to this song on my guitar, I noticed that it's built around minor chords for most of the track. And that's pretty unusual for a song that feels so carefree and upbeat. Now imagine for a second that this song was in English, then it wouldn't be too hard to see a band like The Kooks pulling it off. If you're a fan of that style and you're open to hearing music in another language, I think Happysad might be a perfect fit for you. It's a great introduction to the Polish indie scene and a really good way to kick off our top 10. At number 9, a completely different song, Bądź duży by Natalia Nykiel. A track that really stands out to me because of its experimental nature. Natalia first came into the spotlight as a finalist of The Voice of Poland. Now let's talk about the song itself. Bądź duży, which means grow up in English, is from her 2014 debut album Lupus Electro. And that album has several nice tracks on it, to be honest, but I chose this one because the electronic production feels so fresh and so futuristic, and I really love the rhythm track on this one too. It's not just a simple 4-to-the-floor beat, there's a lot more to it. There's some bongos, some subtle nods here and there to the 90s and to the 80s, and the swelling synth line is also hypnotic. Normally I stick to talking about the music, but the video clip here really deserves to be mentioned. It's quite original for a pop song. There are some futuristic elements, like robotic arms serving the main character, but also retro nostalgia. I immediately recognized the CRT TVs and an old-school tape recorder, and my personal favorite, a Nintendo Game Boy, a Famicom, or even a GameCube. Personally, I absolutely adore retro gaming, so I found that super cool, and this blend of old and new really matches the song's vibe. Natalia Nykiel brings something fresh and something exciting to the table, and Bądź duży is a great place to start. Definitely check it out, and don't forget to watch the video too, it's a visual treat. Zabierz mnie do gwiazd, bym kolejny raz modlił się i błagał cię o... Coming in at number 8 on my list, we've got Oani by Grzegorz Hyży. This track blends a folky acoustic guitar with some really nice catchy vocal and synth melodies. There's even a subtle muted electric guitar, which is a really nice touch. It does feel organic, but also polished, this song. There's just a perfect balance between real instruments and some well-placed VSTs. Now this song is pure sunshine. Seriously, I love playing this while I drive to work in the early morning. With the sun coming up, it just puts a smile on my face every time. The chorus is really bright, the melody sticks instantly. Now I've put it a bit lower on the list, because as much as I enjoy it, I've gotta admit it relies on a pretty standard 4-chord progression, which makes it lose a bit of its magic over time. But that being said, if you're into upbeat, polished pop rock with a hint of folk, Oani is definitely worth checking out. Alright, quick interruption here because this song definitely took some inspiration from another great Polish track by Myslowic. And honestly, I'm glad that it did, because it gives me an excuse to bring up that song too. Have a listen. Now the chord progression is almost identical, just one step down. And the chorus melody, super similar notes, just in a different rhythm. I'm pretty sure Grzegorz was inspired by it, but hey, that's a common process among great songwriters, and he did it right, taking a great song and shaping it into something fresh and exciting. So yeah, give Oani a spin, and while you're at it, check out Myslowic too. You won't regret it. For number 7, we're hopping into the time machine back to 1983. For those who remember, new wave and post-punk were all the rage back then. You had the Smiths dropping their debut album, bands like The Cure and the Talking Heads were shaping the sound of the era, and in Poland, well, there was a band called Lady Punk, and they dropped one of their most iconic tracks, Kryzysowa, Narzeczona. And let me tell you, it's a perfect fit for the time. The guitar work here is straight up reminiscent of Johnny Marr's jangly style with the Smiths. Jan Borysewicz, the guitarist of the band, uses these clean melodic riffs, drenched in a chorus effect and what I believe a flanger to give it a unique feel. It does sound a bit strange at first, also because the production's quite dated and the voice is also not really run-of-the-mill, but you do get used to it, and now I really do enjoy the unique sound of the singer of Lady Punk. To be honest with you, the first thing I noticed when I heard this song for the very first time, and what made it instantly stand out, was his frequent use of the word bitch. Now in Polish this is just a conjugation of the verb to be, but if you're an English speaker you might hear something totally different, of course, which makes it kind of funny, even though it's not the intent. It's just one of those accidental language things that adds a little extra charm for non-Polish listeners. Now if you're into that typical British indie sound from the early 80s, I think Kryzysowa Narzeczona is a must listen. It's got that familiar vibe, but with a Polish twist, and it's a great way to dive into Poland's rock history.
Zostawiłeś mi niedokończony rytm, więc tańczyłam. Trudno tańczyć, gdy serce traci.
Next up, we have the number 6 on my list, Daria with Fifi Hollywood, a track from 2023. And this one's an absolute gem. It shows just how much personality modern Polish pop can really have. A feature that I am, as a Belgian, definitely a little jealous of. Now, musically, the chords might seem pretty straightforward at first glance, but Daria does something clever here. She switches a major D chord to D minor in the verse. It's such a small change, but it instantly adds more emotion to what could have been a very standard progression otherwise. And to me, that's the magic of this song. It's a blend of hope and sadness, and not just in the lyrics but also in the melody. Now let's take a moment to talk about her voice. Daria has this way of singing that feels completely unique and quite recognizable. It's raw, genuine, and sometimes a little imperfect, which I honestly prefer over the overly polished pop sludge we hear daily on mainstream radio over here. Stylistically, the song sits in that sweet spot between pop and indie, and if you're into artists like Churches or Bad for Lashes or Velvet Moon, I think you'll like this track. There are definitely other tracks on her latest album that are really worth discovering, but I think Fifi Hollywood is easily the most accessible one. And Daria's really talented, it's pure lovely music, definitely give it a listen.
Zostawiłam ból wczoraj w Hollywood najwyraźniej.
Coming in at number 5, we've got Baśka by Wilki, which by the way means the wolves in English. Another oldie. Wait, old? Has 2002 really been that long? Damn. Anyway, this soft rock track feels like summer distilled into music, and the playful lyrics talk about the singer's love for several women. Now the title Baśka is actually a diminutive form from Barbara, which is a common naming practice in Poland. For example, Anna becomes Ania, Alexandra becomes Ola, and Katarzyna turns into Kasia. I've gotta tell you, this was pretty confusing for me in the beginning, and even now my family keeps asking me, what is the actual name of your wife? But I digress. About the musical structure. I love how laid back the verses are, only to build up perfectly into that slightly more distorted anthemic chorus. It's got 90s alternative rock written all over it, a loose and carefree energy that takes me back to a far better time. Now those little oohs you hear sometimes in the background that are pretty catchy, well, that really gives me a bohemian like you vibe, you know, from that band the Dandy Warhols. Wilki definitely channels that same effortless cool. This song is just fun and charming and absolutely perfect for a backyard party or something like that. In fact, I got this one permanently on my car's USB playlist because let's be real, some songs just belong on the road. Give this one a try and tell me this doesn't make you want to drive off into the sunset. All the way at number 4 we have NA with Skrzydlate Ręce. Now I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm very sure that I love this song. It's a Polish folk rock song and it's one of those tracks that instantly lifts your mood and gets you moving. For me, NA leans heavily into the Balkan beat style here. The track kicks off with this super energetic accordion riff that immediately grabs your attention. And that chorus, seriously, catchy as hell and full of positive vibes. The lyrics, roughly translated, talk about reaching for paradise and chasing your dreams, which totally matches the upbeat energy of the song. Now over here in Belgium, and also in our neighboring countries, this would be considered for the alternative scene. But strangely enough, in Poland, this is mainstream. And to my surprise, they even collaborated with poppy artists like Cleo, for example. Now, have you ever been to folk festivals like Dranutter or Shetland Folk or Rudolstadt? This band would feel right at home on such a stage there. Speaking of live performances, I actually saw NA live on one of my very first visits to Poland. It was the Fiat Family Day, back when I was still working for Fiat, and their performance was just insane. So much energy, so much joy. The crowd was loving it. And I also couldn't help but tap my foot along. It was just such a great night. If you're a fan of artists like Goran Bregovic or even Mumford & Sons, Skrzydlate Ręce is definitely worth adding to your playlist. Trust me.
Mogę wznieść, a ten gość mówi coś, o co mu chodzi.
For anyone who has been following my channel, the next one shouldn't be much of a surprise. Coming in at number 3 on my list is Szampan by Sanah. Released in 2020, it's basically the track that turned her into one of Poland's biggest pop stars. And honestly, I totally get why. Szampan is pure ear candy. The melody is packed full with hooks, from verses to the chorus, and Sanah's voice has this effortless charm that makes everything she sings sound both playful and emotional at the same time. And what I love about her is that she never overdoes it. No unnecessary vocal gymnastics or layers of artificial effects. It's just her natural tone shining through, which makes the song feel so fresh and real. Musically, Szampan is a pretty modern pop track, but there's something about the mix of acoustic guitar, some subtle violin, and a clean production that keeps it from feeling too generic. And unlike a lot of other pop songs that hit hard at first, but get stale pretty fast, this one still sounds fresh years later. If you ask me, it's pretty hard to compare Sanah to any other big international artist. She really has her own thing going on, blending modern pop with Polish tradition. But if you're into more light-hearted music, something poppy, yet with an indie European twist, Szampan is definitely worth checking out.
Samochód w deszczu stał. Radio przestało grać.
At number 2, we find one of my favorites. Okay, I'm gonna try to pronounce this one. How do you pronounce this again?
Na jednej z dzikich plaż.
Jednej, dzikich, plaż by Rotary. This is a classic Polish alt-rock tune from 1996, and the title translates to On One of the Wild Beaches. And if you're into soft rock with a timeless vibe, this one is definitely worth checking out. As I said before, this is actually my personal favorite from the list, though I can't completely explain why. On the surface, It's a straightforward 90s rock track, clean guitars, steady drums, and a bass line that holds it all together. But what really makes it stand out, I think, are the vocals. They're raw and emotional, and with just the right amount of imperfection. It feels like the singer is fully immersed in the moment, and you can't help but feel it too. I first came across this song on Polish radio, flipping between stations like Radio Z or RMF FM on one of my long drives back to Belgium. And at first I didn't really pay much attention to it, but over time it really grew on me. There's something about its nostalgic, slightly melancholic vibe that really sticks with me. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm already past my 30s, maybe I still long for the 90s to come back, I don't know. I just think this track is a perfect pick for fans of alternative rock or 90s soft rock. It's accessible, emotional, and a great introduction to Polish music. Give it a listen and let me know what you think about this one in the comments. Alright, we've made it to the number 1 on my list, and honestly, this was an easy pick. To, co masz ty by Dawid Podsiadło, released in 2022, is just one of those songs that instantly grab you. Now, if you don't know him yet, Dawid rose to fame after winning the X Factor in Poland back in 2012. But unlike most talent show winners, and let's be real, they often disappear after 1 or 2 songs, which are usually covers, but Dawid, he actually built a serious career. He's one of the biggest names in Polish music today, selling out stadiums and dropping hit after hit. To, co masz ty is built on just 3 pretty standard chords, but Dawid camouflages this pretty well with a surprising structure and a fantastic arrangement that keeps things fresh. And that chorus, catchy as hell, and the way he delivers his vocals makes it feel both uplifting and anthemic. The song is just packed with great little melodies, and the build up towards the end is just so well done. I can totally imagine being at a live show with thousands of people singing along at the top of their lungs to this tune. And one thing I really appreciate is the fact that his voice is distinctive without falling into that overly dramatic, overpronounced, fake accent territory that you hear so much nowadays. And it all just ends up sounding the same and tired. But with Dawid, it feels effortless and engaging. So yeah, if you haven't checked out To, co masz ty yet, do yourself a favor and give this one a spin. Alright, that about wraps up my top 10 Polish songs that I think are perfect for non-Polish listeners. Now, I hope you enjoyed discovering these songs as much as I've enjoyed putting this list together. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And hey, if you've got any own personal favorite Polish songs that you wish to recommend, drop them in the comments below. I'm always out to discover some new music. Now, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye bye.